That's good.
What I found is it was a lot easier to come up with
Positive things?
positives.
Right.
Well,
A lot of its problems are right on the surface
I think
and have been for probably the last,
we overlooked some things that are really good here.
from the things I've been involved in for the last 60 years. 50 anyhow.
Well,
Alright.
Not much has changed, unfortunately. New buildings, but same old problem.
Drugs. Mental health.
Especially for people, and right now it's worse.
Go up and read and see if mine are. Hi there, how are you? How are you? Good, good. So, you just put a check mark, right, Jeff, or
You?
you're the same? Good.
Oh, or you can rewrite it. Whatever.
yeah, I went a little crazy.
Well, that's good.
You're the blue, huh?
Well,
Hi. Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay.
How are you? You representing me, because I have to find out things that are going on. And I'm also, but.
Did anyone put transportation as a weakness?
about a lot of these
Okay.
things.
Okay, we are ready. Okay, we're gonna call the planning commission meeting to order. And we have 3 items on the agenda today. First thing is open to public comment, so if anyone would like to comment on anything, they have 5 minutes to share with us whatever they want. And if nobody does, that's okay too.
I'd like one, just a few moments.
Yeah.
One of the things that, in conversations that I'm having with other people at times, there is so much that hasn't been done in this city over the last 50 years. In discussions, in really looking at things as to how they should be adjusted. It seems like when the Brooklyn Square project, if you will, it kind of ended, a lot of people laid back, this is all it's gonna take. But when I looked at what was happening when we were doing the Brooklyn Square project, we had one industry in particular that really surprised me. They wanted to, they knew they had to move out of there. The idea was that they would go to some new place. But the guy, the owner said at that time, this is great, because now I can just leave, this other person's gonna take it, and away it went from here. So, there's a lot that's happened, and being older, I've been closer in observing some things, only in the sense of age, because there's a lot of things you don't fully understand. But there's a lot that needs to be done here. It's the same list of things that was here when my desk was right there in City Hall. There's a lot of things. There was the big going for all of a sudden the downtown at that time and Brooklyn Square. But there was nothing really going anywhere else. The recent changes in population in the area, Fred Larson wrote an article on that one, I don't know if you remember it, but it stuck in my mind when I read it in the paper. But the loss of population is going to be a big factor. Hopefully people come in and want to stay here and be able to stay here, because a lot of jobs have left this area. Many, many jobs and the people that were doing them. And so we've got a lot of rebuilding to do in what we do. And really have to give a lot of thought to that broader look at what is going on in the community and not pick up little things here and there. Because we've got something to be concerned about. We built a lot of schools in the last few years and we want to keep them full, right? That was kind of a silly comment, but.
I'm always good for a question or 2 or 3.
Go ahead.
You know, I've always, I know that, you know, right now currently the economic development coordinator position is open, and I just was curious, like, what are the differences between what an economic development coordinator does to the principal planner? Like, it's kind of confusing to the average person out in the community, not knowing what job is what and who does what.
I don't know if I've seen a job description for the economic development coordinator.
Yeah. And if anybody, if
I don't know.
like, is Ellen's job like as a planner?
Development would be more
Do-
sales.
So that's the sale part. The planning part is the
Development.
process of the plan for the business or whatever.
Whatever the
Correct.
project is.
And yeah, okay. I just was curious because I've always wondered, like, you know, what's it kind of sounds like the same job. That's why, you know what I mean? Like it there's no distinctive, you know.
And there might be a job description available.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure, like, when it comes down to the duty, you know, job description's one thing, but when it comes down to like, whose job is it to bring the businesses here? I've heard it's the people's job, I've heard it's the city's job, I've heard it's the, you know, like, the real estate agent sells the property, and then the person builds the,
I think it's a team effort, cause we also have the county advocating for workforce, and so
yeah,
I think the position you're talking about is just great, cause it adds one more person to the team,
yeah, yeah,
and
The one
maybe,
thing that has to be understood though with, I've relocated a couple of businesses before, large or, you know, manufacturers. They're looking for a place when they do. And two of them left the area even after I'd relocated them here. But they were looking for different things that were not here. And people here have to be able to listen to those other people and have contact with them that are looking outside to be able to know, have a feeling for what we need to add in here to be able to keep them. And it takes, you can't do it with a couple of people. When my desk was over there years ago, we learned right off the bat that this was a difficult path that was going to go on. It was going to take a lot of work. Good thing we got a good person at it. But it's going to take a lot of work to be able to do it, and it's going to take not just sitting here and talking, but you got to be talking with others. If you meet somebody new and they're in here and they ask you a question, make sure you take some time to answer it, because it might be the business that wants to go into that empty store building behind us.
yeah. That's why, like, that's why I kind of asked the question of like, so when there's an open spot, like I live on the corner, like basically Buffalo and Second Crescent and all that area, and there's this huge plot of land that's been empty, I feel, almost my whole life. And it's like, you know, is that Ellen's job to seek out these spots? You know, and no, you know, I'm not trying to offend anybody, I'm just asking a question. Is that you see that plot of land, is that where the planning comes in to work with the economic development coordinator to bring something like that to Jamestown, per se? What might be those ideas? Like, could Ellen come to the planning commission with a couple ideas of, hey, this plot of land's over here, what do you guys think about this? Is that how things work,
Yeah, but
or
it wouldn't
no?
really, it wouldn't necessarily fall under the scope of the planning commission.
Right.
So, but it is certainly an opportunity to work that position into the comprehensive plan to try to encourage business development and business relocation to our area.
Yeah, I mean that plant, like it's not like right there for everyone to see, but you can see it. It's right across the street from Dawson or from Dahlstrom's, you know. And like I said, I don't know anything about the parking lot. I just have seen it and was curious as what can we put there, you know, and was wondering if that's your job or the economic development job, or is that my job to say, hey Mike, can you get something there? You know, I don't know.
You can call anybody, everybody you want. You can call and say, hey, come here.
Yeah, like I mean, I
Write us
think
a
it'd
check
be a
and buy
perfect, that'd be a perfect spot for, you know, something. Not that don't build any more
Well, and
apartments.
marketing of, you know, shovel-ready sites and, you know, in the area is important. And,
Yeah.
you know, and that's something that is an opportunity for us to do, and
Yeah.
try to pair them with the right builder, with the right business that can go there.
Do you know anything about that parking lot?
Admittedly, I don't know what parking lot you're talking about. The first thing you need to determine is if someone owns it, and so whoever owns it gets to do what they want with it.
Okay.
You talk about Dahlstrom's, it's a company, when I was young, that I worked with and was in their engineering department. And I've been shocked as to how it disappeared. Every time I drive by that building down there, it's like amazing. You know, I look up to the third floor where my table was that I do all my drawings and everything on. And I often wonder, why did they leave? Why did they close down? There was another one that I worked in the same way with, that was down on Harrison. That one disappeared in the same way. All of a sudden, they just closed down. And away they went, and that was quite a few years ago. What makes the change in a company's mind that they need to make these changes, moves, and everything else, are things that we can sit around and talk with forever and not know what they're talking about. And a lot of it, what I mean by that statement is an awful lot of this in knowing how to expand or finding ways to expand Jamestown now that it's shrunk by what, 30% of its population? And we start, you know, looking at all of these broad questions that come in, and how's it gonna change to make it worthwhile? If they need 600 people and you wanna get them to move here, and there's not 600 people available, are they gonna move if they can't put people in? Do they wanna bring them all in from elsewhere? Which would not be a bad thing for us if they all built new homes around here and then stayed here. But there's no simple way to do this. And I found that when I relocated those two companies that I told you about before. Boy, the way things change on the drawing boards and the planning boards and everything else within a business to be able to make a big move like that is quite considerable. And I don't think it's much different now than what it was back then.
I think our 5 minutes is up. We're good, all right.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. All right.
You're hitting me right in things that I've experienced.
That's good though, that's helpful. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan. And the steering committee had a meeting 2 weeks ago now? Or was it last week? All right, just last week. Last Monday, right? Okay.
It was Wednesday.
Wednesday? It was Wednesday. All right, last week.
Wicked warrant,
Sorry.
yeah, I couldn't go.
No.
Right, no.
And part of that is did everyone get a chance to read their, okay. So the first thing that I sort of want to talk about was talking with them. I've asked permission to share these with you. They said yes. I told them we're going to do a SWOT analysis. I told them that we're going to try to figure out a way to increase the survey response and diversify some of their target population. And so I think first I'd like to try to come up with ideas on their electronic survey that they were doing. They said they would do a more concise one and reintroduce it. Some of the ideas that were floated at the meeting were during the Christmas parade on the 7th and have some way to approach people. And it's hard for them because they have a few people walking around trying to get somebody to do surveys. So I'd like for us to try to brainstorm how can we increase those surveys and the responses for that for other people. They had 410 responses. And somewhere else in here, they said the majority of the responses were homeowners in the city of Jamestown. And I don't think that is a good representation to base a comprehensive plan on.
No.
At the same time, you don't want to just say, hey, this is not sufficient, you need to expand it. I really want to try to give them some ideas on how they can expand it. How can they reach more people with a more concise survey where their people can participate in. So if anyone has any ideas, and I think, go ahead, Missy.
So
Okay,
I mean, you
we'll
have
start
to
with
use social media. You have to send that survey to people.
And I think they did the first time.
But you have to know people. Like you have to get somebody that has a lot of people that live in Jamestown that have social media or the ability to pull up the survey. Because I would imagine the survey is not just on Facebook.
Well, the link was on Facebook.
It's on Facebook, but if I sent it to someone that doesn't have Facebook, then they would still be able to do it. I think that if you were to take every person, send it to 10 people, you know, like Sarah send it to 10 people, you send it to 10 people, I send it to 10 people, you know, and then you ask them to share with people. Because I know that the last time there was a survey that was put out for something, they had only had 30 people fill out a survey, and then we just
Survey responses are very
flooded.
Yeah.
Flooded.
It's hard to get.
You gotta flood people with the link.
It's alright, so social media, we can reintroduce it to social media.
Yeah.
If I could suggest, cause I think it actually is great for morale to show the consultants going out into the general public and asking, so that you didn't have to know someone to be asked. And so like at the time of the census, I know they had a team out with iPads, who were going to like public places, like the library,
Restaurant.
they were going like in the lobby at the
Ice
Chicago
Arena.
Center, places where it's the general public coming in and they might have a couple hundred people in one day. It would possibly be helpful too if the survey was in Spanish, and I wasn't sure if it's offered in Spanish.
I thought it was. Was it, Ellen, do you remember if the survey was in Spanish also?
As far as I know, but I can't say that with complete
I
reliability.
mean,
I
I
think
did
it
the
would-
survey, but I can read.
I don't remember if I was asked about English, but if it was in Spanish, you know, even getting an opportunity to go to some of the Hispanic churches, you know, just to some of the more like gathering places. And I don't know what the legal part of it is, but even to venture outside of Jamestown and get people who work here or who have involvement here, like at a Wegmans or a Walmart or a place like
Yeah,
that.
the high volume businesses.
Yeah,
And you gotta get the people to tell the people to tell the people. That's
Well, how long did the survey take?
it's very
it's
long.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I haven't
I'm
even done
But
it.
this
sitting there
was
with
an
my kids at the
abbreviated-
Santa parade. I
Well,
don't know if I
they
can-
said they were gonna try to consolidate it,
Okay,
for the,
yeah, that
for
would
the.
be, I can see where that would be tough, I remember, you know, being in that position with young kids and,
Yes.
and it's hard to,
Well, and I thought about a
Like the
QR
answer.
code on a piece of paper that they could walk around the
That's a
Christmas
good
parade
idea.
and
Okay.
people can scan it and it'll go right to the survey.
Okay.
That way when they're waiting in line or waiting in their vehicles,
maybe they
can
go home
do
later
this.
and
That's a
fill it
good
out,
idea.
or?
Well, they could do it right there on their phone if they're waiting, or they could do it, or we could do an ad in the Penny Saver or the Post Journal, with a QR code. You can just do a little
The
ad.
Gazette?
Well, the Penny Saver goes to every house.
Oh, true.
Um,
Does that cost money though?
The Gazette would be a bad idea, 'cause I picked that up.
yeah, the Gazette,
I can call
they might do a
Gordon's or
public
something, and
service.
you could see
Yeah.
something out.
The Gazette would do it for free, I think.
One thing though that has happened, and I've heard this from a lot of people, is that when a lot of these come around, they like it when there's a human contact.
It does make a difference.
Oh,
If someone's helping you, if you're looking at someone who isn't computer savvy,
Mhm.
that someone can help them navigate through the first couple pages of the survey
Yeah.
to make sure
I
they can.
can remember doing surveys back in my 20s and walking around the neighborhoods and knocking on doors and talking with the people on the porch or in their living room and getting some things done. But that was a few years ago. It's a lot more work to do it, but we got it done.
Could we do something on a BPU statement and say, you know, can you go to this website and fill out this survey
We could have it in the newsletter that
or in
goes
the
out,
newsletter?
but, you know, it's another month now, so depending on how long you
Oh,
wanna
that's
wait.
fine.
That's, yeah,
This is
they're
gonna go on for a long time.
Yeah, we can make a placement, one of them.
'Cause that goes to
I'll get that.
all the
I would think you
houses.
could go to senior citizen sites, like, I don't know if they still have those at the hotel where they may have lunches or something, where you might be able to get people who are sitting because of the length of it.
Yeah. And then we thought about the Jamestown Public Schools doing their,
Actually, if you send it to Cameron Hurst, he could maybe send it out through their stuff. Cause, I mean, if you got every teacher to do it,
That's true.
There's
Well,
a
they can
1,000.
do it in the what is it, remind, or what's that?
Yeah, and that
Yeah,
reminds-
The
and then
remind
send it
app?
to all the parents. That'd be killer. I haven't even done it yet, cause I started to do it and I was like, I can't.
Well,
Nothing's
I think if
easy.
they Consolidate it a little bit,
Yeah,
make
they-
it a little
yeah.
bit more manageable, just time-wise.
How many
Yeah.
questions is? Are they open-ended?
Some of them were, some of them, but I think some of them led to different questions. I haven't seen the outline, the whole outline of it. I just did the survey, but I don't know if I was, if I answered yes to this, do I get these other set of questions?
Where is the survey at?
It's done now.
Oh, it's done.
It's done now, and that's why I reached out to them and wanted to know if they can redo it. And then they just said at the meeting they could do it at the Christmas parade. It's like, well, then let's work on, expanding this a little bit. Because I think it's important to get more input from what they
Yeah.
just, I don't think they got enough representation in the city.
400 people's not.
Well, it's not just the 400, it's the 400 all were, or the majority of, they didn't give a quantitative amount, but it was the majority of were homeowners in the city.
And you want renters and.
Well, yeah, it just
All
doesn't
right.
represent it,
Yeah.
enough of the population. Alright, so that's some really good ideas. And I will talk with them if they can go to high volume businesses and if anyone wants to join, to help out. We can do that. It'd be sort of fun. The other thing could be to have events at different, council, in different wards and have the council members be part of it, cause they might really appreciate being part of this process. I don't know if council is really involved a lot with the comprehensive plan. So this would give them, some insight into how it's being created and also allow them to communicate directly with people in their ward.
That's a very good idea for the council.
And the legislators.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
you
gonna
have
affect the county.
19, not 19, you're 5.
Well, there's 19, but
Five.
there's only,
Is it
like
5?
4 of us or 5 of us in the city or connected to the city.
Yeah.
But we could choose, I'm not sure how you would do that. I mean, you'd have to choose a place to meet or I could go, I could go door to door.
Also, Justin Gould works for
That's-
PJ Wendell is the,
And that's
Oh,
the name,
yeah.
I
Is
would
the-
contact him.
yeah.
Mhm.
he could do maybe cause he works for the county, which part of the county, and he could do maybe a thing out for him.
Mhm.
Even posting it directly onto Western New York News Now,
Oh, yeah.
you might get a lot of responses. 'Cause you wanna hear-
WRFA,
you
all
wanna
the
hear
news,
from all the different types of people,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, WR.
WDOE is out of Dunkirk, they do a great job.
And they might do it at a lesser charge if
They
it's a
would do
public
free.
service.
Free.
Alright, very good. So next, brings us to the SWOT analysis. This is something that the steering committee, has worked on a little bit. And I just think it's important for the planning commission to generate a different set of ideas on our own. Outside of the steering committee, just to help support and reinforce maybe some of the direction that they need to make sure that they cover, I guess. So, we can all talk about the stuff that we wrote down, and I think sometimes the reason behind why we wrote it is important. But generally strengths are things that if we change policy or procedures or legislation, we don't want to jeopardize our strengths. It's something we want to make sure we preserve no matter what changes we make going down the road, because it's a strength now, so let's not weaken it. We can enhance it. Some of our policies and procedures and legislation can enhance the strengths, but we don't want to weaken them. Weaknesses, we all have our own list of what some of our area weaknesses are. Same thing with opportunities. Those are probably the things that policy and procedures and legislation can impact the most. And that's sort of where we want to focus most of our energy on. And threats are going to be things that we have limited control over. They can really impact our area, but we don't have a means to control them. We can't control the inflation rate. We can't control the interest rates. We can't, there's some things that are just beyond the comprehensive plan. They can hurt us. They can negatively impact our community, but we just have limited control over them. So for me, some of the things that I put down is, like the BPU, Jamestown Public Schools. I always hear a lot of positive remarks on that. Parks, some of our social services, both government and non-for-profit, I think are very important. Our chamber is very important for businesses. Under weaknesses, I put lack of affordability. I think with the per capita income around here is around 20,000. The median household income is close to 40,000. And if you take that ratio and put it into housing and food and groceries and gas, it's expensive. Property taxes, as we're currently talking about that now, that really adds into home ownership and affordability if the tax rates are high. And so that goes into housing costs. Safety, I think the perception of our public safety is very important. Our actual, the crime rates and some of the statistics from that are important. And also making sure that, our police department is adequately staffed and they can get the officers that they need. I speak with a lot of officers and some of them, take positions in other departments just because they don't want to be right in the city. And I think that's, important. Opportunities, economic development, we talked about that. I think there's a lot of opportunity here to try to really sell businesses and the city, and especially pairing them with our resources. I mean, manufacturers love the BPU. The rates are really good. Now they're working on internet. It's a really good asset to our area. A lot of our infrastructure is really stable. I mean, when's the last time the power goes out? When's the last time the roads are closed? I mean, it's we have we're very fortunate for that. Collaboration and with JCC and other places for skilled labor. There's an opportunity for that around here. We don't have a lot of plumbers, electricians, engineers. We just don't have a lot of them. And threats, inflation, regional population decline. And what I wrote there?
That's a great question.
Little chicken,
Yeah.
scratch over there.
Chicken scratch.
No one did put the DPW up there. It's missing.
No, we didn't. But anyway. Businesses leaving the area. Yeah, that's what I wrote. I was gonna write, sorry. So that's sort of what some of my thoughts are, and I'll turn it over to whoever wants to go next and talk about some of theirs.
Okay, I mean, I can, I put, it's interesting, I put affordable housing as a strength. And I'm just looking at my own family. I have a son who lives in Denver. He won't touch a house for under $500,000.
Yeah.
He's got a good job and his wife has a good job, and I have a daughter who just has a house and a son just bought a house in the city, and I mean, that's a struggle, and they're putting a lot of labor and time into it. They're fixer-uppers, but I think it's possible. I think there's opportunity here for business. Specifically, I'm not sure what, but anyway, the festivals in the city I think are great. From everything we do all summer long, Greek Festival, Bluesy Fest, all those things. The Jackson Center, the Fenton. I'm a history teacher, so I like those. I think we're close to Buffalo, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. We're really hour and 20 minutes, and you're sitting at the game in Buffalo. For the Bills, if you want to go there, it's not that far to Cleveland or Pittsburgh. I like the little slower pace. My son moved out to Phoenix, worked there for a year, decided that, you know, hot and hotter is not great, and traffic and 2,000 a month for rent was just unsustainable, and he moved back here. And he's the one that bought a house in the city, you know, so, yeah, very happy about it. Again, the lake and city parks, we have awesome city parks. The college, the comedy center, you know, the YMCA is a tremendous asset to this community. Of course, the ice arena, and I don't know what this says about me, but Wicked Warrens and Southern Tier Brewery, and
Yeah.
anyway, Farmers Market, Roger Tory Peterson. Weaknesses, well, you know, I listen to them and we have them for sure. The weather's not always great, but you know, we don't have natural disasters, you know, so, you know, and, yeah, I think that, like you mentioned, the perception that there's high crime in this area, that's the perception that it's not as bad as people think it is or say it is. If you look at the statistics, it really isn't, just a couple highlights. Travel sports, I think, is something that we're missing the boat on. I did a lot of that with my kids, and I think we should host tournaments and bring people in here for, every year they come here for a basketball tournament or hockey or whatever it is. And, I think hiking and biking trails, and I think our airport could be, hopefully that, I'd love to see commercial air service back. And threats, yeah, really the same ones that you have, you know, crime is, and businesses leaving, just, you know, that's the way it goes.
You look at crime now, just about every day you pick up the newspaper, it's on the front page.
Well, that's why people
Yeah, but
perceive it as being so bad, but statistically, it's not as bad as we think. It sells,
No, but it's,
and it's fear, and fear sells.
mhm.
It's just to say, hey, there's another good day in Jamestown, and that's not gonna sell papers. I don't
One
know.
of the things I think that, because it's a factor with that concern, is that if you take guns at this point in our lives, they are very accessible to a lot of people. When I go back to, let's say when I was a teenager, guns were not. I couldn't go pick up a rifle when I was young that would shoot more than, was it, what, a 22 or something like that? And you could shoot one shell at a time. That's all we could have. Everything was putting one back in. My shotgun was the same thing. When another guy, we had a meeting one time over at the, across the bridge, and one guy had wanted to, he's actually a cousin, bring a Luger, which he had picked up during a fight in Germany in World War II, just so we could see what it looked like. And he got a no-no from a lot of places that no, he could not bring it out into public, into the meeting. It was not that big a group, and we ended up seeing it. But it was, in those days, it was really tied up, though. You couldn't do much with anything that was repeating more than single shots. And, but we didn't have any problems. Now, quite often, you pick up the paper and somebody shot somebody here in the city. So it's, I'm looking at it because it's different. When I was growing up, you might say it was not like that, because you couldn't do it. But we had people in Washington that wanted to change the availability of guns for people, then look what we got out of it. Just the reason they were all shut up. I mean, shut up, the guns put away all those years ago, just to avoid it.
So as a grant writer, I deal with statistics a lot, and something I've been saying in recent grant applications, and it is kind of alarming. It's like 7,000 some people are considered below the poverty line, and then another 8,000 are considered between 100 and 200% of the poverty threshold. I still don't even really get what that means, except that they struggle to make ends meet. So you have like people who are considered, you know, unemployed and in poverty, but then you also have working poor. And when you look at the numbers of our city, it's actually half of our city fits into those two categories. So I think it's a weakness and an opportunity and a threat, but a lot of our other issues, I think, come from having half of a city, which is really absurd, 50%, with that level of basic needs not being met, maybe lower quality of life, and then you start to see, you know, more crime or more bad consequences. And I know, like, as a city, you know, when you look at us compared to other cities and the state as a whole, our numbers are really bad. And so I'm concerned about that as far as for the future of Jamestown, is the number of people who struggle to make their basic needs met. And then I'm also just, from the moment I started working at Jamestown Renaissance Corporation a long time ago, and I've since left there, I've always been really caught on this feeling about the perception of the city being negative. People talk about the self-esteem of the city. So even within our county, you have a lot of negativity about Jamestown. And I think, again, that's a weakness and an opportunity. If we could somehow harness some of the negativity there and maybe help those masses of people get their basic needs met, we could start to kind of turn the corner of just hearing negative things about Jamestown. And I'm just thinking in terms of businesses investing in the city, those are two huge issues.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a current state of emergency for the homelessness. Those are all things that we have to try to address if we want people to stay here, we want businesses to relocate here. Because those are things that, you know, worry me as a homeowner here. And so I don't have a solution to that, but I hope that that's part of the planning, and not just, you know, keeping an eye on the fun projects, which are important too.
You're hitting the nail on the head with what you're saying, and a lot of it is caused simply by the distribution, meaning how it passes through society to different people. We have so many people in the country, again, who are in extreme hardship for the lack of money. And a lot of the work that's coming out of government is to go the opposite way, to still try to build up things of money, but leaving a lot of people out, and that was the problem years ago too.
I noticed something that wasn't up there, and I'll add that.
Go right ahead.
You want me to add
Yeah,
that?
right ahead.
So, I didn't see childcare up there.
Yeah.
So childcare is a huge weakness in our city.
Right, go ahead, right?
You want me to write it?
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'm writing
Get
it.
it on the board.
Right. I think childcare, transportation, you know, like you said, the lack of, you know, if someone's working at McDonald's for 30 hours a week, they can't afford all the bills. So either a dual income, no kids, because dual income, no kids, you don't get no help. But dual income kids, you get a little bit of help. So I think childcare could go under here.
I mean, so I would highlight a couple of things that I really agree with. So for strengths, the city parks, you know, and with that comes events and festivals and sports and, you know, just recreation time in the city. I think that's a huge strength. The low cost of living is something that probably isn't highlighted enough. especially since 2020, the work from home kind of revolution happened, and you can live here and work in Washington DC.
Yeah.
And you pay a quarter of the price of what you would be paying, but make a Washington DC wage.
Yeah.
Slower pace of life is also a big thing for me. It's a small town, takes me 2 minutes to get to the office every morning. It's awesome. For weaknesses, I think the empty buildings, especially in the downtown, is a tough problem to fix. I think absentee landlords, we hear so much about it, where people have these large catalogs of homes and they're not taken care of properly by landlords or by the tenants. As far as opportunities, the biggest one to me is the riverfront and the Chattacoin. I think that a lot of work has happened on those in the last 10, 15 years. I think there's a lot more that we can continue to do. Threats, I would say it's places leaving, businesses leaving. So those are kind of the highlights for me.
Of course, a lot of businesses are leaving because population has dropped too. Another factor in it.
I mean,
like
is it
you
the
say.
population's drop, or is the population's drop because the business leave? It's one and the same,
Yeah.
right?
In a
How
lot
do you
of ways,
attract?
Yes, the sense is
How do you
correct.
how do you attract businesses here to get people to move here without the people here? It's very
You can't.
And I think that what Sarah said about the negativity, like, you always hear people say, oh, it's just Jamestown. Oh, that's Jamestown. Oh, no. Jamestown has a lot of good aspects to it. And I think that if you can get that negative connotation out there about how, oh, no, go to Jamestown, this will happen or that will happen.
Alan, do you have any?
Well, I heard the conversation about climate safe community. I think that's actually a strength as we look at the future. And I talk to a lot of businesses. Some of them are in the city, some of them are outside. Just yesterday, a pretty major employer in the city said, housing is the #1 issue. I can't recruit young people, whether they're college graduates or coming from, an industrial setting, here because they want to find a place where they have amenities. They don't necessarily want to buy a house right away. They want to have some kind of an apartment complex where there might be a pool or a gym or something. And we need to find developers for that kind of housing. And the other issue is one that Melissa brought up, and that's reliable transportation. It's okay to have a system that runs from 7 to 6, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., but what about the second shift? And what about people who have to be to work at 7 a.m.? It's been an issue at the college for students who want to do internships. It's a real issue for people who are trying to work. And one of the things that concern me so far with the planning has been calling Jamestown the Center for Economic Activity. Number one, we are the center for services. That has been a little bit of why we get the negative connotation. Where do people have to come for mental health services, social services, health services? They have to come into the city. Businesses have moved to the outskirts. Do we need to look bigger than just our current borders? Do we need to look at the metro and say we need to increase our borders so that we can take advantage of some of that? And then I think we did get some good news today. Even in the Post-Journal, they said, clean energy is getting to be a focus in the South County. We could take advantage of that. That's a huge opportunity. We have already recruited some businesses. We have businesses that are working in that sector, and that could be a real opportunity for us to move forward. But I think affordable housing, we need to look at it as more than subsidized housing, but workforce housing that would be flexible enough, both single family and multi-tenant, but enough that we could recruit people to live in the city.
When you think about what you're saying, years ago, I can't remember, Olson, the builder, that they built, I don't know, a couple hundred houses.
Right?
And it was all to take care of, in part, people that had come back from the serving in the various services. and others, and a lot of that housing's still there. But it was all for that kind of thing. They had to start, it was an open market, put it that way, when Givden and went in to build those houses, because they knew there was a big market there of people looking for them.
The scariest part about building workforce housing though is gentrification. Because the minute you start to build, people wanna build more and build more. And what I see here in Jamestown, after living in Austin, Texas, it's a scary place to try to build more affordable housing. Because I feel like you have to take the housing that's already here and fix it.
That is what a lot of the science has been in the past from JRC. Because we have such a huge housing stock, how can we reuse what we already have?
We have to reuse and repurpose. Like one of the things, and I know that, you know, people might not like this being said, but we have 2 huge buildings downtown that house a lot of people that are on some kind of assistance. And we lose opportunities for workforce housing downtown, in your downtown, because a lot of times, no offense, but they can't afford to accommodate your downtown. If you're on a fixed income at $1,000 a month, you can't go to Sauce once a week. You can't go to these restaurants and make them flourish. So there's 300 people living downtown that can't afford to make or go to Wicked Warren's and have a beer every night, or you know, stuff like that. And that's the hard part, is what would you do with those people? You would have to build something for them to, you know what I mean, like, 'cause they're all on low income.
So when you do your study for a project, and I know learned this a little bit with what we built, boy, you better understand what the society is where you're going to build. Because all of these things are factors, and you hit them right on the head with a lot of the, especially for families and things like that, that are, people like that are having problems. And we've got a lot of people in Jamestown that live in horrible conditions. And
Alright, does anyone-
it's nothing to be
Ellen, do you have any?
proud of.
No? Does anyone? Jennifer? No? Okay. Alright, so we have our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And taking into account all of this, we need to identify stakeholders that have not been spoken to, and we have a list of who they've already spoken to, that would, that are critical for CNS, for the comprehensive plan, to speak with. And to sort of say, hey, you know, if you're gonna talk with anyone else, say they wanna talk to three to five more stakeholders in our community, the planning commission really encourages you to seek out these stakeholders.
And those are the people in the box there that have been.
Haven't been.
That have
Haven't.
right, the people that have, you're doing something. Oh, it's on here, okay, so, you can, does anyone get a copy of this?
To me, the top one on that list is.
Oh, Ellen, wait, this is just what I sent to Ellen. It's just my notes.
It's just your, okay,
Yeah.
oh, that's yours, okay, so, we'll share this.
It's okay, it's just, it's
That's
not
okay.
like private, but it's not helpful to anyone.
Well, so we have,
But that was the list.
that was the list,
Yeah.
okay, so this is still the list.
To me, the biggest one on that
So you can-
list that's up on the board there would be JCC.
Yeah, JCC would be huge.
Yeah.
Okay. So we need to eliminate all of this down to 5,
Oh.
so that we can say, hey.
Well, can't we just highlight 5 and not eliminate people?
Okay.
Right, we'll circle them.
I won't eliminate that.
Get rid of Chris.
I say JCC. I vote JCC.
You know, so, and this is a recommendation from the whole commission,
Mhm.
not just from me.
I say UPMC, not WCA, but UPMC. That'd be some, I mean, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
TRC.
I mean, United Way isn't involved in a lot of aspects of the community. So they would, I think, be a good spot as well.
They're a good point person that
Right.
kind of comprises a lot of the other groups
Yeah.
out there.
But would they have a lot,
They might help represent the people in need, which is sort of missing from this discussion. Well, I'm sorry, it seemed that way in that one.
Well, and these are some of the, you wanna make sure that the stakeholders, we know who they've already talked to, and it's like, well, where are the voids? And how do we get them access, to them?
so, I mean, the resource center is huge, because they have over 12 to 1,400 employees. So that's, I mean, all those big time employers would be,
Yeah, and on their list, I don't think they spoke with any major employers,
No,
in the area.
so maybe Cummins.
that's what I was thinking, Cummins, but they're out of the city, so I didn't know if,
But
They
that's
would-
okay, right? Because it's kind of the greater area.
I mean, most people that work at Cummins live in the city. I mean, not
One thing that's happening in the Post Journal, there's a lot of articles that are being written by a variety of people. And from when I talk to some other people, a lot of other people are reading them. So it's spreading around, and I think that if things like that were done, even a few maybe being written by people in City Hall, it would be good to get them out. I know I wrote some articles years ago, and I got a lot of comments about them, not against them, but questions that came up, or question asking and things, and it paid off. Got a good result. So,
So we need two
and there's a
more.
lot you can write about with housing.
I personally think they should look at like the Jamestown Rotary. Because they have, if you combine both, it's like 150 members from all different sectors. And they could at least disseminate the survey through there.
Well, then these are things that they would actually go to and talk with them
That would be great.
in person. And you saw what some of the responses have been.
Like, I guess I interpreted it as like individual people, like
It can
business
be.
owners
It can
that
be.
would be, that have a stake in
Yeah.
Jamestown doing well, and so.
And you can, you can
I mean,
define it.
and that's why I suggested, and Rob came to mind with Wicked Warrants, because actually
Mhm.
I've known him a long time, and there's a guy who just invested a lot of money in business downtown, who
That's
would
true.
like to see
Why
it
did
do
he
well.
come here and,
You know, this was talking about why businesses come here, they come here because they think they can make money. You know, people come in and they say, why don't you put
That's why
a
I
Chick-fil-A in, you know, down in Brooklyn Square, and I'm like, I don't own a Chick-fil-A, that's not, Chick-fil-A has to say, yeah, we can make money in Jamestown.
when I came back here in 19, I came back here because I thought that with driving for Uber and Lyft that the city was gonna be flourishing, and unfortunately, COVID happened. So we gotta go back to that drawing board.
Alright, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
There's a lot of money laying
I
around.
mean, I think that's a pretty
Two
good
in
kind of
churches.
cross-section of what's missing.
There's a lot of money laying around in churches.
Yeah, Luke Fedor at St. Luke's, I think, is a great asset to the
they
city.
met with the farmer's market and the JRC, which he's president of that board, so I
Mhm.
think he
Yeah,
probably
he
had a
would be.
chance to,
Okay.
but maybe
And
not. Luke Fodor.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so we're okay saying the planning commission recommends talking to these stakeholders to better diversify, they've already. Okay.
I think I would suggest that you try to get some more things going out in particularly the Post Journal in the area before you start talking to a lot of these people, so they're fed with some beginning stuff.
Yeah, it's been
Leading
out,
up to it.
it's been publicized, but.
It doesn't, there's a lot more. I read it, I've written some of it, there's a lot more to be written.
Alright, so next, if we had to do the comprehensive plan, and it was solely up to us, I like to try to identify the top things in weaknesses and opportunities and try to say, okay, this is how we wanna overcome this. These are our weaknesses, so part of the comprehensive plan, how do we overcome some of these, how do we focus on these, and what's most important for the planning commission. That way I can talk with them and say, look, these are the things that we really feel that would benefit the area the greatest. Because all of this is very challenging, and it's gonna be a real challenge to get some of this in the comprehensive plan to where it will develop strategies to create an impact. And we all know what the issues are, it's how do you overcome the issues. So in weaknesses, what are the top 5 weaknesses that we say we can actually have a chance to implement policy to turn those weaknesses into a strength? And I think that's really hard to do.
Well, transportation came up from a lot of
It did.
people, and that's something we can actually change.
Yes.
We've got a lot of agencies that have been trying to change it for many years.
But I don't know if they've been city agencies, but it's certainly cooperating with the county, and maybe we need a better partnership. Maybe we need to partner with, Jamestown Public Schools. They have a fleet of buses. The city has buses. We have, maybe there's a chance to, to really work on some of that. Now I lost
I'm
transportation.
sure it's up there.
What you just said is very important on spreading out the distribution of information.
Yeah, it's not. It was said, but you're right.
Yeah.
Well, because like what you said about the working poor, I think is spot on, and that could help them
That
get
helps
to
get them out
that
of
job.
there.
Yeah, but what do you need to move from working poor to a little bit, higher income education? And it doesn't have to be JCC necessarily, but maybe some type of training or something, some kind of job skill that they can.
And JCC is doing a lot more with
Yeah.
like job skills training, if you could get there,
Yeah.
or if you
Yeah.
had childcare in order to
That's-
attend. So maybe we're talking about ways to move out of poverty, and like transportation and childcare would both be part of that picture.
It's,
So is that something that
It's something that could be changed, right?
I think the thing that you're saying is really important, because a lot of times it's easy in a situation like this to start focusing on one thing. And then when it goes out and it's being done, it doesn't quite do the job. There might be, instead of one finger, should be 5 there. Different things working on it and coming from different directions, so that one person's or one agency's delivery of things is different from another, adds something to it, or it shows a second thing. But if you get it all in one place, it may look good when it comes out, a big written thing, but it's not gonna get the depth in the population that you want. At least it's generally shown that it doesn't.
So childcare, through policy and programming, we can work with other agencies to develop maybe a stronger, more robust childcare system in the area. There are, YW has it, YMCA has them, there's private, but just knowing it's an opportunity for future businesses, if they know that
Right.
there's, a void in the area and a need for additional childcare.
It'd be nice too if we could get a few of these buildings that have these wonderful manufacturing facilities in them to be able to fire up again and hire people.
What
That'd
about
be a
the
big thing.
affordable housing thing, like Ellen was talking about, for not just subsidized housing, but,
Workforce housing,
yeah,
and
Yeah, that was an interesting one, because I have nephews that live in apartment complexes that are, you know, they're in their thirties and it's in Denver and but part of the draw is, you know, the building and all the amenities and how close it is to where they work and,
Yeah.
they're not ready to buy a house. Even if they could afford it, they're like, I'm not interested in buying a house right now, but
And
where
that's
would
something
you?
that we can develop.
We've also got existing housing that we have to think of. We've got a lot of neighborhoods.
Yeah,
We need the funding in many cases to be able to remove some of those houses, especially particularly bad ones, and others, so that what we have left can become a better home for someone. And we've got to, that would take a lot of work to go through a neighborhood and try to pick that stuff out and how you're going to get it done. But we've got a lot of bad housing in this area that if you cleaned it out, you could put something new in a neighborhood that already exists, which would probably reduce some of the cost of putting it in. You could maybe do it singly for families, or maybe two, but instead of sticking them all into a big new facility, you got all these people that all have the same kinds of problems, living in the same building, trying to converse with each other in a way that could be positive for themselves. Doesn't happen. You've gotta get them out in neighborhoods. And you want the kids to be able to play with neighborhoods that are filled with kids who are living in a little better household situation, so they can see the other side of the coin.
And neighborhood revitalization.
I'm sorry.
It's good. And we do have programs now for that, for tax incentives. If you build a new house, it's phased in over 10 years, I believe. And maybe expanding on some of those programs, and, you know, and making sure that that's still part of the comprehensive plan going forward. So we need two more.
Gotta stay the riverfront,
yeah.
especially because so much of it can be free family fun.
Yes.
And then I think personally, I would say the historic districts, historic nature of our city is what sets us apart and is a great opportunity.
And so the riverfront, which is opportunities for more events down there, to
Yeah,
attract
I mean,
people down there.
developing the full riverfront, because I know they've been focused on certain sections. It's a lot for the educational aspect, plus just beautification.
Is there any other things on here that we feel that through policy can be improved upon or taken advantage of? We have opportunities and weaknesses.
I think if you get that started, you're gonna get some of those coming along as you go, and you're making adjustments. I think you got a good starting thing right there.
So we're all comfortable sharing this with CNS? And saying this is the recommendation and some thoughts from the planning commission?
This is where we start.
And can I have them reach out to you for Rotary?
Yeah, and I put the emails for Ellen as well in that
Okay, good.
thing.
Okay. And if anyone has any contacts, direct contacts, I think they were gonna talk with JCC.
Yeah.
And then, but if anyone has any direct contacts for Cummins United Way, or Rob, just to send them to Ellen, and she can pass them along, you know?
You should, as a suggestion, try to do something in the same way with the school system as JCC.
They did meet with Jamestown Public School System.
Pardon?
They did meet with the people at JPS.
Okay, no, I mean, keep it going.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad to know that there was something that started.
Right.
So often you go to groups that are somehow tied to governance, and then you can't get it to go. So, that's why I said it here. But if the teachers and everything really get on board with it, what the kids get in housing and what they get in school, could turn a lot of things into a better situation in the city.
Okay, we will share all this with them. And then the next item on the agenda is a local preservation ordinance. And I will let Ellen give us just the update on that.
So Sarah, you teed me up quite well with,
Good, I was like, oh, good.
leading off with historic districts, and I'll dovetail off of that. I have been informed, briefed, that the LPO that had been explored previously and tabled for a number of explanations is otherwise going straight to council. And so they are going to be, as far as I understand, they are going to be voting at the next voting session, which I think is Monday, on the current draft. I'm certainly accessible and receptive to any questions that council members have over the current draft. It hasn't changed since the last time I shared it with you guys, probably a little over a year ago. In particular, just to kind of give you some context as to the trajectory of things, the ordinance is largely based on the state template, and most state templates look the same as they're based on a federal kind of template. One of the things that the state template does not include is chapters or sections around demolition. And so I did, and this was previous, so again, if you're like, yeah, we know this already, you know. So I did include dedicated chapters regarding demolition delays, demolition by neglect, and other issues regarding demolition or removal or deconstruction of structures, with that, in terms of that being an integral part of it otherwise. And that's the short of it. So, if it doesn't get voted on next week, I don't know if it just goes to December or January, the holidays are upon us, but that's what I know.
Have you presented to the council members?
So I was requested to provide the draft, and so as I understand, the draft was to be disseminated among council, but I haven't spoken to any council member directly about anything.
I mean, would it be helpful to present to them maybe on a work night?
I'm certainly available and receptive to any requests that someone associated with council, if they wanted me to make an address about it, I'm happy to do that. I haven't received any requests yet, just the draft.
But it looks like it's gonna be voted on Monday.
As far as I know.
As far
Yep.
as we- And they're aware that the planning commission has not done anything with it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how familiar they are with the context otherwise, that the commission had otherwise been discussing and addressing the possibility of an LPO. But I guess in terms of the the procedural kind of things, this doesn't require a planning commission approval. It certainly can't hurt. But as far as I understand, council is ready to vote on it.
I think it's good to have is either approvals or thoughts, but just kind of show that there's a whole bunch of people that have been looking at it, not just one group.
Sure. I will take my cues from those that otherwise are,
Of course, we're still
the
relying on
leadership
you
for council
100%.
and that sort of thing. But since there's a history of the LPO within this commission, wanted to let you know kind of where that is.
And you get a lot more people talking about it, and that can lead to a better thing,
Hey.
unless they all get crabby at the same time.
Would you update us on what the vote is?
Sure, yeah,
I
I'm,
would be anxious to know.
yeah, I will be anxious to know too,
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
Okay. Alright, anyone else have any business for the commission? Okay, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.